Best place right now to find us is on Instagram at societyg.co.
Right? Because you have to have the quantity, because 20% is not a lot, right? Especially for what people pay for short-term rentals. And you do a lot of work, but but we will not sacrifice our brand, right? So it's, what is that? That's kind of what we're working on now as we build and as we scale, is like, what is this going to look like in the long term, right? Like, are we going to need more people in the field to help with quality control and things like that? So,
The other thing about the mastermind that we're in is, a year ago, even when we were first starting on this hotel deal, I wasn't thinking that, we're going to own multiple hotels
Right.
someday. But being in this room with all of these people who have done these things, it just opens your mind up to all the possibilities.
Right.
So it's really about getting out of your circle and those limitations and putting yourself into another room with other people. And then the room inside that room that gets smaller and smaller.
Because it's a need, right? Like, women go through different, an experience as a real estate investor as a woman is very different than an experience that a man has. I think in just aspects, and you can probably speak to this in teaching, like a female and a male brain are very different in every way. So like, when the way that you learn, the way that you communicate, the way that you comprehend things is very different. And in a lot of the investment groups, it's tailored towards men, because, and it's not like to spite women, right? It's because the majority of the people there are men, right?
Thank you and welcome to the show. Alex Deacon Real Estate here. I have Brisheet with me today and her partner, Mary. And we met through Ian. How did you guys meet with Ian? How did that happen?
This was probably the summer of 2021, I think, whenever I moved back and we just started working together. We were doing marketing and we started sending out probate postcards. So we were getting a lot of leads and people calling us.
Right.
So we had one that was in Carnegie that had fire damage. So we had recently gone to an acre meeting. So we went on to the Have Wants Exchange meeting that they do. It was just like a random, like, Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. and Ian happened to be on it. There was like 10 people on it. And I asked if anyone knows how to assess fire damage. And he was like, "Where's the property at?" And we told him, and he just said, "Oh, I can do it for you guys." So that's when we met him.
Oh,
yeah.
Where was that property at?
I think it's still listed.
It was in a flood zone.
It's like right around the corner. It's not too far from here at all. I forget the street though.
Because there's a 3-unit. Was it a 3-unit or was it a house?
It was
a house
unit.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's well, there. You know where Campbell's Run Road is?
is it on the corner?
It's on the corner.
It's on the corner. Campbell's Run actually starts as Chartiers, and
Yes, that's it.
That's the
That's
house.
the house.
my friend of mine bought that, and he's stuck with it right now. He's trying to sell it.
We were like, we even looked at buying it and tearing it down and then just selling the land, because
there's not enough value there.
Yeah.
Probably cost you 15 just to tear down the house.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's why
That's
we didn't
so
do
funny. Yeah, he bought it, and now he's trying to sell it. I said, "Why don't you just list it? At least let me list it." And he's just like, "Yeah, it's commission's too high." And I'm like, "Okay, well then you're gonna sit on it."
What do you buy it for?
I want to say 30.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think we offered 12.
No, I think we offered her like $2,000.
Oh, was it that?
Yeah.
2,000 is a good deal.
Yeah.
A good deal.
Yeah.
I have a buyer for
tear it down, maybe, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, this is...
I had somebody who wanted to buy it from them at 30 and they didn't want to take a loss. But anyway, it's that's real estate. So that's how you met Ian. And obviously then that's eventually how we met. And since then you've gotten your license. Brisheet, you don't have your license, right? Your real estate
No, I'm
license?
on chapter 9
Okay.
of the PA section.
Well,
so I'm
always ask me, should I get my license? And you don't have to have your license to invest in real estate. I'm sure there are billionaire real estate investors that don't have their real estate license.
Right.
So
absolutely,
it's nice to have. I think for what we do, I think it helps. But anyway, so Brisheet, more or less born here.
Yes.
You since you were 5, and she had a job as a professor. So she's a smart person. I don't know what you're doing on my show. I don't know what you're doing on this show. But yeah, you did that for a very long time, 15 years, not 50.
Yeah.
And she started dabbling in real estate with her dad. So you partner up with him And did you guys do some flips together? And was he handy so he could do a lot of repairs and stuff? And, you know,
Yeah,
things like,
my dad was definitely a jack of all trades. He was a carpenter. He was a construction worker. He was a general contractor. That was really, though, in his life, even before having kids, he was his profession up until, through high school and college. For me, he was a professional land surveyor. He had his own business. But he did love working. He loved working on houses. And so ever since I was in high school, I would paint my own bedroom, and he taught me how to spackle. And I remember being in college and saying to my landlord, like, you need to spackle these holes. And he's like, how do you even know what that word?
here, let me show you.
Yeah. So I started early on, also having a love for rehabs and just, changing things and making things better in a three-dimensional space. And when I bought my first house, after getting my job at Edinburgh, I bought it in the North Side, lived in it, fixed it all up, over that year while I was living in it, put in a new kitchen, new bathroom, painted every square foot multiple times at this point, and refinished the basement. And then I realized that I really loved that process, and I had an entire summer every year to do that. So why not make that a cycle in my,
Sure.
profession, to build a little real estate portfolio. So my dad and I bought our first house in Findview, in our neighborhood on the North Side where we live. It was listed for 30,000, and I didn't know anything about distressed sellers or, probate. And this happened to be that situation, but it was listed on the MLS. And we offered 30. And then after the inspection, it was obvious that that wasn't going to work. And I dropped the offer to 15. And the agent for the sellers said that they're never going to take that. They're going to cancel. And I said, well, it's Wednesday. They've got until Friday to make that decision.
Good
So
shot.
let's just, you have to give it to them. So let's just wait. And they said no. And I said, well, it's only Thursday, so give them another 24 hours. And last minute they came around and they said, yes, they're actually going to accept the deal. So we spent that. So that was we closed that in 2011, I think. And then we spent that summer working on the house, and it was a great experience working with my dad, learning from him, really getting to know him as a person, as partner. And then we bought another one, and we did it a second time. And then I had some kids, and my dad retired. And I didn't think too much about it for quite a few years, but I was a landlord all
Kids will
that
do
time.
that to you.
Yeah.
You're preoccupied.
Right. So my summers became, walks in the park and strollers and all of that stuff, which I wouldn't take back for, for
And
another house. any
Brigitte, your
day.
kids are 4 and 7, did you say?
4 and 7.
Yeah. So so to understand, she was working a full-time gig, well, as a professor. That's full-time, but you get summers off.
Right. Yeah. And that's supposed to be your creative time where you're working on, whatever your research is. And for me, that was renovating.
So the
houses.
backdrop is you have a good job, stable, you have, 2 little ones at home. And at some point you said, you met Mary
Yes.
and you decided, okay, let's find our niche here. And your niche is short-term real estate rentals. Is that right?
That is right. We did not know what that was when we, met each other.
And
like
when did you
divine
decide to
intervention.
just pull the plug on the job? You're like, I'm working too hard. Because I always tell people, as we just discussed, don't quit your day job. Work until you can't work anymore. Maybe it's 70 hours a week, whatever it is. And it's hard with 2 little ones too. I mean, you want to be a mom. That's priority number 1.
Mhm.
Yeah. What was the tipping point for you?
Well, I think that, you mentioned the stability of the job, and that stability started to go away. I taught at a university that has since merged with 3 other schools in the state system. And I was kind of a part of that whole process, and seeing that happen, I felt much less stability. I also saw a lot of changes to the environment that I was teaching in. The responsibilities that the faculty were being put on them were not really related to teaching anymore. And I was driving an hour and a half one way to get to my job. So that priority being my kids was actually coming second
Gotcha.
for at least 9 months out of the year.
Yeah,
And
that's 3 hours a day, 5 days a week.
yeah, I loved the job before I had kids because I would drive up on Mondays and come back Thursday, usually. Friday
Okay.
would be an office day.
Right.
And then I was really fortunate in having great benefits. Both of my children, I had amazing leave, maternity leave, and got to take 6 to 12 months off with each of my children. And then when my daughter was born, she's my youngest. I took my maternity leave, which was 3 months. I took 6 months of sick leave due to complications from the pregnancy. And then that happened to align perfectly with my 1 year sabbatical that I had applied for 3 years ago, not knowing that I would be pregnant, but definitely trying to get those three things to come in alignment. Not the sick leave, but so it worked out that I had almost 2 years off. And that sabbatical year was during COVID. So then the following year I was teaching online. So I had 3 years of being home with my kids that felt like such a blessing, but also very eye-opening as to the fact that soon it was going to end. And I really needed to pivot in my professional life for that reason, number one, but also for the reason of really being interested in real estate and seeing that my profession was something that while it was a great paying job, there was not the stability that I could create. No matter whatever I created in that job was not mine. It belonged to someone else. And realizing that for the first time really made me think I needed to start thinking about myself and my future and what I could create and have ownership in for eternity, and then pass that on, of course, to my children.
Okay. Well, that's a brave step. I mean, that's a very brave step. So Mary, explain to me where you guys met. And then we'll get into like where your background too.
Sure.
Right? So segue into that.
Yeah, for sure. So we met, I was still living in Seattle. I left Pittsburgh in 2015 and lived on the West Coast for about 6 years. 2020 is when we met, or like 2021, very end. I was working for Amazon at the time, and it was middle of COVID, and Amazon did a lot during COVID. So we were, basically 24/7, like just working. And Washington State was shut down. So I was in my apartment by myself, right, for the whole time. So I just was also thinking through like, what else did I want to do with Amazon? And was it Amazon? Was it somewhere else? Was it another role with them? And just I always felt like I wanted to not work for a big corporation, and was always interested in real estate, but didn't really know a lot about it. And, of course, when you start looking at stuff online, you start getting ads on your Instagram feed and stuff like that. So I saw an ad come through for it's called REIN, Women's Real Estate Investors Network. And it was just like a $17 masterclass of, hey, like do this masterclass for 5 days, like see if you want to do more with investing. And that, yeah, I didn't even plug, didn't even really think about what it would become. Right. So it was like early December. So I took the class, went through that month, and then I ended up doing their mentorship program. And then in January, Brisheet joined their mentorship program. So back then there was probably like 250 people in the group. So very small, right? And most people were in Texas area, like South or on the West Coast. So I saw someone introduce themselves from Pittsburgh, and I was like, oh my God, like we got to hang out. We got to talk to each other. And I messaged her and told her I was moving back to Pittsburgh. Like I knew I was moving back to Pittsburgh 4 months later.
Okay.
And I was like, we should.
And you were going to move back and still work at Amazon?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So my job at that point was completely virtual. So I was able to kind of be wherever I wanted to. Prior to that, I had to be in those places. But so yeah, I was making my way back home after being on the West Coast for a while, and we had been in contact, and she just said, when you're home, when you're back and settled, like let's meet up and we'll go from there. So I moved back in April. I think in May we got coffee, and
It's 2020,
2021.
2021.
2021. I moved back in April. We got coffee in like May and decided to start doing probate postcards together. And June is when we started sending them out, and we started getting deals right away together. So, and at that point we were just taught get the property and then figure out the strategy, right? Like we weren't set on short-term rentals. We weren't set on furnished rentals, like
Yeah,
anything.
you were gonna basically you were gonna wholesale these, right?
Wholesale or keep
flip
them.
it,
Yeah.
keep it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Really whatever made sense for the
It just
properties.
depends on the deal.
Yep. Yeah. So that's where we started in the summer and just kind of continued working together.
Okay. So
Yeah.
fast forward to this spring will be 3 years then. So
Yeah.
at what point you doing so many deals, you just said, okay, let's do this. Let's just do it. What was that? Was that milestone point in your life where you guys just sat down together? I'm sure you like talked about it and you're like,
Yeah.
or did one person quit their job before the other? Or did you guys both do it at the same time?
So I was looking at going back to teaching in August of 2021, and I was really pushing hard for online to continue teaching online, but they had lifted the online teaching for COVID and they were getting people back into the classroom. And because I was a tenured professor, they said, absolutely not. You have to be here in the flesh. And no matter what I tried to, argue in terms of my current state with my kids, and that was not an option. So I made a very abrupt decision to decide that was when I was going to resign. I had applied for child rearing leave, which is 2 years with, no pay, but you can come back at the end of that 2 years. And it was approved. And then we had a new president and she decided that it was no longer approved. And
Oh,
so that made it very easy for
Yeah.
me to resign.
Yeah, that
'cause I
made the
felt
decision.
like, yeah. So I can't imagine if it would have been approved, because I would have actually this past fall, I would have had to make that decision all
Right.
over again.
Yeah.
Although at this point it would have been a very easy
Easier.
one. So it worked out in the end. But at that time, we did not have like any sense that there was enough money coming in, that there was, that my salary was being replaced. What we did have was a number of short-term rentals that were furnished, a couple properties closed that we were renovating, that I was, doing projections on when they would be done being renovated, when we would have them furnished, how much they would be making monthly. And that all looked good enough on paper for me to say, okay. If I had the real numbers on paper, I would have ran back to my job. But we kept at it. It was a grind and we kept working at it. We kept,
That's the curse of an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
Everything looks, you don't see the holes, but
Right.
that's, you know what, that's what, that's what keeps you going. It's that positive attitude. And then that's, you have a lot to gain and you have a lot to lose. So
Yes.
just do you.
a bunch of stuff and, got some good loans on some other things and, used it as long as I could, but man, it would have been great to have it for another year.
So
So,
you had-
don't quit your day
Yeah,
job.
exactly. I've said it before and I'll say it again. So, because you do hear that a lot. You hear burn the boats, right? Burn the ships, get off the island, burn the ships. But man, it's very scary and it's very dangerous, but it gives you no option but to succeed too. So let me go back to where you started, and you're from Pittsburgh. And when did you get into the tech world? And then what took you to Seattle?
Yeah. I went to Penn State branch campus, not main campus. That's like a big deal. Apparently I went to Penn State New Ken for just business, and then ended up working at Target for 5 years. I was an intern and then I was a manager there. So like I got to launch the East Liberty Target as their operations manager back in it was like 15 years ago. It was a long time ago. And then I was there for about 5 years, and then I went to Lowe's as an HR manager. So I was at a couple stores, running stores, doing like just that retail side of or the store side of retail. And then I applied at an Amazon role that was open in Pittsburgh. Like I didn't even know, that there were Amazon buildings in Pittsburgh. And it was sort of around when Amazon got really big, like started to become really big.
Mhm.
So I applied for the role and I went and interviewed, and they offered me a site in New Jersey. And I was like, what? Because I told them I was relocatable. So they offered me ACY5, it's in South Jersey, was a warehouse. So I ended up moving there. I lived in Philly and commuted over to New Jersey for about 6 months. And then they asked me to move to California. So I moved to California and worked in a Oak 5, which was a huge sort center building. Got to build the HR network for all of North America sort centers, which was really cool. I was an HR business partner. I was a senior HR business partner. I was a program manager. I was a regional manager. So it was just neat to be able to see that grow from being, I think there were 23 buildings when I started and over 100 when I left that organization. So really, really cool. I mean, you can't pay for that type of experience, right? To go through a startup environment, to deal with all of the stuff that was going on. There was a point in time where I was basically just managing through wildfires in California, right? Like I know so much stuff about wildfires and about like the air quality index and things like that,
Wow.
why would I ever need that information, right? But I had 10 buildings in California, and wildfires are a big deal, right?
Yeah.
So like managing through every kind of crisis, COVID, right? Like all of just really crazy things and Amazon was always at the forefront of everything, right? So we were always like the trailblazers and doing it before everybody else. So we were truly figuring things out. And that experience was just insane. And I loved it. So that I kind of weaseled my way into a role that got me to Seattle because that's where their corporate office is. And I was a program manager there supporting the network that I worked for. So I got to help continue to build the HR processes and operations and all that kind of stuff, which was cool. So I was there for about three years in Seattle. And at that time, I think I'd been gone from Pittsburgh for almost 7 years, and it just felt like time, like I always said, like, I knew I would probably move back at some point. But it just felt right,
So you had an opportunity to come back and still work for Amazon.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
In a virtual role, I was able to I could live wherever I wanted to. So I was like, I think I'm going to go back. It was COVID in Washington still. Like, I mean, everything was still shut down. And I was like, it's time. Like, I feel like it. My family's here. Friends are here, everything. So moved back. And I worked for Amazon up until this past January. So it'll be a year that I left. So the first 2 years we were together, I still worked at Amazon. Did both. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So and that was hard. That was really hard. Any role at Amazon is like 2 full-time jobs.
No kidding.
Like, really, like, no matter, and it's not always stressful work. There's just so much going on, and they grow at a pace unlike anything else, where it's just like a little bit, like, it's just madness at all times. So like I was in a role that was way less demanding than being like in the field and in the warehouses, but it still was a big role, and it still, required me to work over full time every week,
Wow.
So yeah, so it just got to be pretty crazy. And I got mentally and physically burnt out. So that's really when I started to plan, like, what is my exit strategy?
Well, because you were doing both.
Yep.
Right.
100%. Yeah.
So, and that's what I kind of suggest people to do it that way.
Mhm.
And at some point you're like,
Right.
yeah, this is not healthy.
Mhm.
And this is deterring my growth with this other company,
Yeah.
my own company. So,
Yeah.
what was the tipping point for you?
I was burnt out. So it was probably summer of 2022. And I ended up taking a leave of absence from Amazon. So I did short-term disability, for just anxiety, just kind of mental health, and just being completely physically and mentally burnt out. Right. I think we talk a lot about, and we hear a lot about being like physically burnt out and being tired and run down, but it's a whole nother ball game when you're mentally burnt out. It's like nothing works, right?
Yeah.
Nothing works. So I actually took a leave of absence. So I wasn't doing Amazon, but I was doing real estate still. So I really didn't get time off, but it was off from
your
the
brain
second job.
your brain
Yeah.
shut off. Amazon was shut off. So
I never thought
focus.
about it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I did it, and I didn't know how long I would be off. But I ended up taking the full 6 months. And at that point, there was no world where I went back,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
I just separated at that point. So
Wow.
Yeah.
2 brave women here
Yeah.
in front of me. Okay. So tell me now, we're in almost 2024. What kind of ventures do you have going on, and what do you have planned for the future?
Well, one of the things that we were talking about in regards to when she left her job at Amazon just the other day was that, I made a couple comments like, I don't think it's time for you to leave yet. Can you just hold on a few more months?
Hang in
Because we were actually working on a hotel project, and we thought that we would be closing that right around this time last year. We're actually closing it this year. So it's been a whole extra
You
year.
haven't closed it yet?
We have
No.
not.
That was a long
we
time.
own half of it.
Yeah.
So there's 2 parcels, and we purchased the first parcel the beginning of this year, and that's it's pretty much done. We just have to furnish it. So
Okay.
the hotel portion with another single family home has been taking forever just with the lenders and different loan officers. And every time you get a new loan officer, you kind of go backwards, right?
Mm.
Because they're asking the same questions and they're things
Yeah.
like that. And just
Yeah.
things that I think we also, none of us and our two other partners, we've not done a deal this big before, right? So it's a learning curve for us as well.
Right.
And I think that probably added a little bit to the timeline too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of red tape, and I think the economy's kind of taken a little bit of a downturn, so I think it's causing lenders to kind of take a step back. Did you run into that at all? Did you have to switch lenders at any point, or we've been the same lender the entire time?
Luckily, we did not have to switch lenders. We've been working with Bridgeway Capital and the URA. This is a really kind of special project.
Mm.
So we've gotten some great funding, some really great funding partners that believe in this.
Mhm.
We had commitment letters 6 months ago, and then we had issues with the liquor license transfer.
Mm.
So getting through that, and then our commitment letters expired, and then we got a new closing or a new loan team kind of starting the process back over. At the same time, we had so much interest from other investors to join in. We created a general limited partnership structure. So that changed things for, Bridgeway and the URA. They needed updates, and there was more questions, and we, they want to make sure that
Yeah.
things are still, the
Every
same
time
as
you
they were.
change something,
Yeah.
it sets something in motion, and I get it.
Yeah. Also contractors. This is a really big project. We've got about a $2.7 million renovation budget. So we've got to vet contractors. They need to be able to give us the right information and finances and all of that stuff for a job this size for Bridgeway
Right.
and the URA
Oh, wow.
to
I never thought about that, but the bank's like, hey, who's your construction team?
They approve every.
they need an AIA contractor's
So many-
qualification
so many
statement.
layers,
It's
right?
hundreds of pages long, and so you've got to be with the right people in
Wow.
all those different areas to make
And
sure that
is the URA like, is it government? Is there government involved in that? Is that even adds more layers?
so
There are
it's
grants and things like that?
I'm not quite sure if it didn't seem like it for us. The URA, Urban Redevelopment Authority, they definitely focus on projects that meet specific criteria in terms of how they're benefiting the neighborhood. And they were really on board from the beginning, knowing that Bridgeway was supporting us. So Bridgeway is our first position lender, the URA coming in second with really great rates, is supporting the project in that capacity. And so they were pretty much on board, obviously have to check all of their boxes, but they're like, you get your commitment letter from Bridgeway, you've got the commitment letter from the URA right behind that.
So do you think you'll be closing before the end of the year? I mean, it's December 15th right now, so
Thank you for saying that date, because
we have
that
16 days left.
December 15th was our date to close,
Yeah.
which we have been working towards for the last 3 months, I'd say.
Mhm.
And Bridgeway has updated us that our closing date is looking like mid-January. So we've got extensions with the Liquor Control Board, lots of conversations and updates with our seller, with the agent, just keeping everyone involved in the loop, all of our investors. But there are benefits. We're seeing the benefits to that. Our interest rate, so our first commitment letter interest rate went up initially and now has come back down. So the time has actually allowed us, and even it through the second commitment letter, to keep our lower interest rate.
Well, that's good.
Mhm.
And we've also, just been able to do a lot more due diligence in terms of our contractor and the work that's being done, and getting things lined up for the engineering, MEP, structural, civil engineering, working with our architect, having all of our plans in place, going through zoning and parking analysis. So we've been doing a ton of work, as if we already own this building,
Right.
so that we're in a good position.
You're gaining invaluable experience, aren't you?
It's so cool. It's great.
It's pretty
I mean, this
crazy.
is the-
Yeah.
I probably would not attempt this, and especially in this point in my life, but wow. That's incredible. So how are you guys cutting it? How are you guys paying the bills right now? I mean, is it basically your short-term rentals, and are you doing any flips? Are you doing any wholesaling? How's that working out?
Yeah. So we, when we transitioned to building out societyg, which is our design, furnishing, short-term rental, midterm rental space, we still have projects going on that are flips that are, we were doing some wholesaling, we were doing a little bit. So we are really working on finishing those up because they're sucking a lot of time and money from us, right? Because every project goes over, it goes over budget, it goes over time, it goes over everything, right? So financially, like it's been, the last couple of months have been really tough for us. And it's, and we know that it ebbs and flows, right? And we know, the place that we're in, and we know where we have to be, right? So we've really, just pushed forward and have started taking massive action to find extra money to get these projects done quicker, little things like that, to be able to just finish these rehabs and either sell them or list them as furnished rentals. But right now, yeah, so the majority of our revenue that's coming in is our rentals, midterm, short term, and then we both have a couple of long-term rentals as well that are out there, and our design services as well. So when we work with an investor or somebody who wants us to manage their short-term rental or midterm rental for them, we do design services where Brisheet and her team go in and we're actually doing all of the design work, all of the layout of the property, curating any artwork that needs to be done, finding all the furniture, right? So design, we furnish it, and then we manage it, right? So that it kind of adds another step to that.
It completely turnkey. So
Yeah,
if somebody
100%.
wants, I'm a busy guy and I have lots of money and I want to buy some properties, and maybe I don't have lots of money, but regardless, your service is turnkey, from designing the space to
furnishing,
marketing it, furnishing it, and managing the whole process.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And we've even done with a couple of our clients too, if they do want us to manage like the punch list with a contractor, or if there's minor renovations, and Brisheet will manage that as well.
Right.
So yeah, we love working with investors.
Well, how are you marketing yourself? Where are you finding your clients?
Right now, everything is word of mouth.
Everything's been a referral.
And we're so thankful for obviously the relationships that we built in Pittsburgh's, investment network. And we've got just some really great friends, great people that we work with that recommend us to other investors, other people with short-term rentals. It's been a really organic way to grow the business. And it's been great for us while we're figuring out these construction projects that we're still doing, because we want to market. We want to really put the pedal to the metal on our design furnish management business, but we don't want to do that until we're ready. So we're taking clients word of mouth. We're planning that out. It's working really well. Just building, kind of incrementally right now, getting our processes standardized, everything, sorted with our team, so that when we're done with all these projects, we can really go full speed ahead and start marketing ourselves and get the word out to a lot of people who we know can use this service, because we've done more than just, the entire package. We've worked with investors who have properties that they're turning over the management to us. So we're going in and we're evaluating their current property. We're doing, some updates, or there's a punch list, or they want a full redesign on something. And then we're working with another investor who is, he's doing his work remotely. He wants to travel. So we're doing midterm rental with where he lived, so that affords him the ability to travel and still keep his property.
Right.
And so we used all his furnishings and created a plan where we had to add things, and, just to keep the budget down, because it's important that, you can prove to the people that you're working for that you can really make them money. And we don't want to overspend in the beginning and then, have our projections be wrong. If we can do that with ourselves, then that's on us, but we're in this business to do well for our clients and make them happy.
Yeah. You don't want to kill the golden goose. That's what I always tell the people that work for me. And I try to instill that in anybody offering a service, is if you do a good job and you hold your client's interest ahead of yours, and that's hard to do, especially when you need a paycheck. Sometimes it's hard to do. It's hard for salespeople to do, but it's the right thing to do. But if you do the right thing and you work hard, it's likely you're going to make it, It's
and have fun.
And have fun doing it and feel good about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think we've been joking a lot, joking, but also very serious about the fact that this year's been the best and the worst that we never want to have again.
It's the most fun I never want to have again.
Yeah, it's the most. And it's so true.
It is so true. Every day is like a roller coaster 100%. For me.
But like, I wouldn't change it. You know what I mean? Like I can't see myself going back to a W-2 job. There's no way. but we're like, this is not,
Absolutely.
why did we sign up for this?
Yeah. It is, it's torturous, but it's the best thing that anybody can ever, and that's why I love this country too. Cause the opportunities we have, it's not easy,
Right.
but at least we have the opportunities. So it's funny because I had a guy contact me. He has a nice property up here in Scott Township, and he wants to do short-term rental, and I have to follow up with him because if he wants to go that route, I'm just going to pass him on to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
No, that's what we
awesome.
we had talked
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
It's not something I do. I don't want to get into it just because again, I stay in my lane. And once you get a certain part in your career and your life, I have grandkids now. You realize how important time is. And every time you want to get into another business, it's great and it's awesome. We always have the opportunity because we live in this country and we have those opportunities, but there's a price to pay.
Yep.
And you have to be willing to pay that price. And I tell people that all the time. Are you willing to pay that price? Because you guys know, you're sitting here in front of me. You know, there's a price to pay.
Yeah, we paid the price. We're still paying the price.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. But it feels so good to know that, we're masters in the short-term rental field. We do really well in that area. We love it. We create really unique furnished rental products for our clients, and we're building an amazing portfolio, and it's so much fun. It's easy to say no to things now because we do have the focus. So, that time part of it is so important. And just, we had 2 years to really figure out what we could do together and what made the most sense for us. And I think it was really a blessing to be able to try so much so quickly. And to make those mistakes early on and really fail forward to get to the point where we're at now, where we're succeeding forward, not failing forward
I
anymore.
think you nailed it though. You said, now you can say no. Some of the greatest investors, I can't remember who it was recently, but he said some of his best investments are the ones he said no to. Because he knows he would have lost his ass, or it would have just been more effort than it was worth. And yeah, being able to say no is super critical because your time is really the most valuable thing that you own. So utilizing your time and focusing on the big rocks, not the little rocks, which I tend to focus on all the rocks, and then you get stuck in the mud.
She keeps me focused on the right rocks.
Man, I get so anal about every little detail, and then nothing gets done. We
have a lot in common.
That's what I think everybody does.
Sitting on my hands over here.
This is why we're great partners.
Yeah.
We're very different.
So so Mary, are you the one that you prioritize and focus, and Brisheet, are you the one that's going in every direction trying to make sure everything's perfect?
Yes.
Is that it?
Yeah, I think yes and no. I think yes. We typically refer to it as like the visionary and the integrator, right? Where she's the creative, she's the visionary. And my background is it's operations, it's running businesses, it's building teams, it's, you know what I mean? So it's like, we just kind of naturally.
That's a good marriage.
Right.
It really is.
It is.
Yeah. There's probably a few rock stars in the world that have all of it.
Right.
But I think most entrepreneurs and business people tend to be on the Brisheet side. Just they have the big picture, but they just don't know really how to get there.
Yeah.
They just do it. That's how I did it. I just do it, and I make a shitload of collateral damage, and somehow I came out on top. But
I think
there's an easier way, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think for Mary and I, we both have visionary integrator qualities.
Yeah.
When I was at Edinburgh, I was an integrator 100%. I had to be. I had to create programs and structure and hold events and manage graduate assistants. I mean, I had all kinds of like management things that I did. But since I met her, I was a horrible integrator. Because when you really get to know someone who has that kind of talent and skill, like I just want to learn everything from her that I can, but I also want to let her take that and run with it and learn and just listen to what she says.
We both tried to do both for a really long time. And I would say like the last 6 months, we've really been focused on like separating our two roles and really saying, what are we responsible for? Because we're scaling at a pace where we both can't be involved in everything anymore. And we have to really draw that line, because if we're both doing the same things and we're both doing nothing, right? Like we're not accomplishing things. So like, we really have to divide and conquer and trust that, hey, all of the, I mean, if you can think about it as like all of the operational stuff, like I'm handling, right? Like anything behind the scenes, anything, and then everything like creative design, client facing, Brisheet's handling, right? So it took us a while to get there, and we struggled because I think it was the frustrations we would have with each other all stemmed back to, we didn't delineate what we were doing and really carving out our roles. And once we did that, it's easier to say no, right?
Mhm.
Like, wait, I shouldn't be doing that. That needs to go here, right? And then starting to add some team members in, right? Like all of that
Yeah.
stuff. It's starting to come together.
I
It feels good.
I preach, build a team, good attorney, accountant,
Yep.
carpenter,
Mhm.
plumber, whatever, build a team.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to say, build a team, but there's so much to building a team.
Mhm.
It's not that easy.
No. not.
Building, managing, motivating, making sure everyone's happy, paying them, but also being stern and, letting them know when you're not happy. And it's an ongoing learning process to be a leader and an organizer.
100%.
I'm still learning.
Yeah. And I worked with some of the best leaders in like corporate worlds. I mean, you were never the smartest person in the room at Amazon, and it was incredible. But when it's different when I'm like, wait, I have to do that myself now. Right. Like, like, that's on me now. And I have to figure that out. Right. Like I don't have like a SOP to go to, or, that kind of stuff. So like really building it from scratch, I think that's probably been the hardest part of the transition for me is not having that corporate world to fall back on. Right. Like the buck stops with us,
Right.
it truly is.
Sure.
That's what it is.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years business wise as a group, and or where do you want to be?
This is a great question. I feel like I have very very vivid visualizations of where I'm at, and I asked Mary recently, like, whenever someone asks us what our goals are, I can like blurt it out right away, and I feel like I maybe take over some of that space for her. So I was like, what are your goals? What do you so I'm going to let you answer that.
I knew you were going to do that. We've also learned recently that I don't visualize very well. Like that's not an easy thing for me to do, because I just am not, I'm not the visual person like she is. I think that we want to be boutique hoteliers, right? And have multiple.
I'm going to have to look that up
hotels.
online after we're done, because
Isn't it a cool term, right?
I don't know what that is.
Soon we'll be able to put that.
I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room.
Owning boutique hotels, right? So the one we're working on will be a boutique hotel.
Yeah, just very niche-y.
Mhm.
Okay.
Very niche-y. I think it is something where Brisheet is at her highest and best use and doing what she loves to do and being able to create and design. And I enjoy that as well. And I've learned so much from her. Like I have that side, but like, that's not my specialty, right? Like I need to just be doing shit and getting shit done and executing, right? Like that's my specialty.
Keeping me in line.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, that's why we work together. But I think that side of it though, like I love that the creativity and being allowed to kind of flex into that space. And I think as we grow, the goal is that we're both able to, flex into more roles where we're doing a lot more delegating and not as much of, in it every day, but maybe we're mentoring other people to do the same thing, things like that. I am at my best when I'm leading other people. So any way I can, like, I always see myself like building out like other groups, right? Like investment groups to help develop people, or, we recently started Gather, which is our women's, what is it? REI collective for women entrepreneurs.
That sounds good,
that's it. We're like very infant stages. You guys are actually sponsors for us, by the way.
I knew that.
But no, it was something that, when we started 2 years ago, we would go to these meetups and there were no women, none. And we were just like, where's everybody at? Like, what's going on?
My assistant Tiffany said, you need to get some women in here.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, Tiffany.
I don't know any women,
Get it,
in
Tiffany.
the real estate. And then, okay, let's get in here then.
Yeah,
Let's
for
do
sure.
this.
Well, and I think it's not a space that's been dominated by women. It's always been dominated by men, right? And there's tons of female realtors, but that it's different as an investor, right? So we sort of just started to flock. A lot of people started flocking to us, and women would reach out, and we'd invite them to the
What's
meetups.
the reason to build the group? Is it because you want to help, or do you want to help and you want to build some sort of business that you can actually grow and create income by doing that,
think
by
both.
mentoring others? And
I think both.
Yeah.
And I think that organically we just wanted to do it because it's needed, and it's also very beneficial for us. I think that it will naturally grow into a larger business because it's a need, right? Like women go through different, an experience as a real estate investor as a woman is very different than an experience that a man has.
I'm not a woman. I don't know if you noticed that or not. But yeah, my wife works for me, with me. She's my partner. She keeps me in check too. And she's like my Mary. I'm definitely the visual guy. And my daughter works with us. She's been with us 10 years. She's 28 now. Tiffany's also, my assistant for the past 4. And, I have other women that work for me under property management and stuff. And they just get treated differently. Like when I send an email out, it gets the utmost response time. And when they send an email or leave a message, it's like 2 or 3. And then they have to, hey, Alex, can you reach out? I'm like, I don't treat people like that. I don't care what gender you are. I'm going to respond regardless if you're an alien or if you're a woman, or it doesn't matter.
If it's your cat, it doesn't matter.
So you do have even in this world, I guess you do have a challenge that a guy doesn't have,
Yeah. Well, I think in just aspects, and you can probably speak to this in teaching, like a female and a male brain are very different in every way. So like when the way that you learn, the way that you communicate, the way that you comprehend things is very different. And in a lot of the investment groups, it's tailored towards men and it's not like to spite women, right? It's because the majority of the people there are men, right? Yeah. So we just started to have like conversations with other women at these events, and and I've always just kind of like manifested in my head, like having some sort of group. And when we started societyg, the idea behind society is that we would, if you feel like you're part of something, right? And we were like, this is why we like doing this, is we want people to feel like when they're staying at one of our places that like they're a part of our company, they're a part of our family, right? And then it kind of goes to like starting a women's group and just kind of everything. And that's sort of just like I feel like that's a value for us. It's just really making sure that people feel valued. So yeah, I think the vision, to go back to the original question, hoteliers.
That was the question.
For sure. Yeah. Hoteliers, bringing it back.
Around.
Well, get the one under contract or closed.
Yeah.
Get that functioning.
Yeah.
Hone your skills, get really good at that. Then go find the next one. Anytime you're still doing the short term of your own short-term rentals and you're managing other people.
Yeah. I mean, it's clearly definitely more lucrative to manage your own short-term rentals and collect all of that revenue. When you're managing for other people, it's a balance of quantity and quality, right? Because you have to have the quantity, because 20% is not a lot, right? Especially for what people pay for short-term rentals, and you do a lot of work, but we will not sacrifice our brand, right? So it's, what is that? That's kind of what we're working on now as we build and as we scale, is like, what is this going to look like in the long term, right? Like, are we going to need more people in the field to help with quality control and things like that? So
yeah, it is a numbers game. It's the way property management is too. It's very small margin per unit.
Right.
So you do have to get to that certain number that's like, oh, okay, this is sustainable.
Right.
And then you get to a point where, like, I think that's where we are right now, is my wife probably doesn't want to grow the business, but I'm like, we have to grow. If we want to make more money, we have to grow. The only way to do that is you have to find those good people,
right?
The good people to train. Like, you can't train talent. You can find it and then you can train that person. But so finding that right person is the difficult part. And that's building that team. And that all comes down to what we were talking about, how difficult that is.
Yeah.
Easier said than done.
Right. Right. And I think one of the things that the single best business decision we've made since working together was this past March, when we joined the Boardroom Mastermind and just decided to, like, we did this for us, right? We knew that it's not cheap to be in a big mastermind. And we knew that going into this, we were going to get the support to scale quickly. Yeah. And, we oftentimes are solving huge problems that could take us on our own a month. And we get on one call with somebody and they've already gone through this problem. They tell us how to solve it. Right. So it's really been, I mean, like drastically has changed our business and put us on a trajectory that we weren't thinking of, but we also didn't know where we needed to be focusing either. And this has really helped us just hone in on, get rid of the shit that's bleeding you, right? And really focus on
I've heard that
the things
word
that are
a lot,
growing you.
mastermind. I'm like, that's just a word,
Yeah.
but I've never done any masterminding, and I can absolutely see how that can propel you from
And this
point
is
A
really
to
our
point
first,
B.
yeah,
That learning curve can just be drastically cut in
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, you are like this, and we just went to the third meeting that we've been to this year, and that was the third for us total. And we both looked at each other and said, we feel like we belong this time, because you're such a little fish in this monster pond with these like big names and like people that are really doing a lot of stuff. So, and I think just being around that energy and those people, it's game changing.
It might be too a little bit of ego too, putting your ego aside, like, hey, you don't know everything.
Well, and that's the thing is like most of the folks that are very well known, like in our group, you typically see people that are doing really well and you just assume that they have egos, right? Like you just assume that really successful people probably know they're really successful. They're not going to be,
they don't want to help you.
Don't want to help you.
Yeah.
Completely the opposite, right? Like it is just not true. Right. And we're now surrounded by those people that are just pouring into us and helping and cheering us on, but also, helping us through the shit that we mess up too. Right. And it's just all about being vulnerable and not being afraid to say, help. I need help. I have a problem. Like, what do I do?
Yeah. And shut up.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just
And
listen.
yeah.
Please stop talking. Because I'll sit across the table for somebody. I'm like, you're not listening to anything I say. I can tell. Because they're already thinking about
what they're going to say.
And I'm like, dude, you're not listening. You got to just stop. You got to be quiet.
The other thing about the mastermind that we're in is, a year ago, even when we were first starting on this hotel deal, I wasn't thinking that, we're going to own multiple hotels someday. But being in this room with all of these people who have done these things, it just opens your mind up to all the possibilities.
Right.
So it's really about getting out of your circle and those limitations and putting yourself into another room with other people. And then the room inside that room that gets smaller and smaller.
You can see that. Yeah. I read this, the 4-minute mile was forever not able to be broken. The 4-minute mile for like years, 30 years, something like that. And somebody broke the 4-minute mile. Then like months later, that was broken. And months later, that was broken. It's the same thing. You guys are seeing how big that circle can be. And now you can bust through it and you're like, oh, that's doable. Your mind plays tricks on you, right? Well, listen, where does anybody who wants any help with boutique hotels or short-term rentals find you? Potentially for their services, or maybe they have a hotel to sell or whatever. Where do they find you?
Best place right now to find us is on Instagram at societyg.co. We also are building our custom website right now. It'll have all of our listings on it, how to work with us, examples of our products, the services that we offer. What else? We have
we're going to add a page for real estate as well, just for agent stuff for selling. Because I have my license and she will have hers, so we'll add that. So Instagram is the best way because we just continue to add everything through there.
And you can always reach out to me, Alex at alexdeacon.com. You can always email me and I can get you a hold of these two nice ladies. And I also have another Airbnb that I own one with some partners. So we'll have to talk about this because they want to sell finally, because they're doing this remotely and they really shouldn't be. I'm not doing any of it. So this might be an opportunity for us to work together.
Cool.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming on, and I wish you guys the best of luck. I hope January 15th you close on that sucker, and that's a whole new door. That's a whole new journey. So yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, when we get into it, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of cool stuff to talk about. We'll have to come back and chat through the deal. Like when we get into it,
you do like before video. Man, you got so much social media that you could do.
Yeah, we've talked about it, and honestly, I think that it hasn't felt real until the last month.
Yeah,
to be honest, because we've had so many ups and downs. So, but yes, we one of our other partners too has a a very extensive marketing background.
That's good.
And so does Brigitte. So I think
Man,
we're
if you could-
planning what that, yeah.
Just don't
we
forget.
wanna-
I see. I keep
it's special. We
telling
wanna
myself to
document it
do
all.
it, and I don't. I did it on a flip that I did recently, but man, you guys, there's so much content
Yeah,
there.
we want to document it all.
Every
'Cause it's-
little aspect of it, you
Yeah.
know.
and it's a historic landmark in
Yeah.
the community.
Yeah,
And
that's cool.
the neighbors are so pumped and the community's pumped, and it's like everyone wants to be involved. So it's,
Yeah.
we want to document as much as we can.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thanks
so
for having
much.
us.
Thanks.